Okay, are we live? It seems we are. Okay. All right. So welcome all to my YouTube. Right now there's nobody watching, which is cool. This is kind of my first or second live stream that I'm doing. I think live streaming for me is going to be better for me trying to put content out with little and minimal effort. So thank you for those of you that are watching the restream or whatever. But today, as you can see by my title here, I'm talking about Kanye West, the Donda album, Christianity, religion, and whether or not Kanye West is a quote unquote real Christian, right? So first things first, I loved the Donda album, right? I've been listening to Donda since July. So Kanye had two. So no, he had a listening party in Vegas that was kind of a closed event. Then he had two listening parties in Atlanta, which were public events and also live streamed on Apple Music. Then he had a one in Chicago, and then I think he dropped the Donda album a day or 2 days after he had his last event in Chicago. I think it was 2 days after because the Chicago event was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning. He dropped Donda album, the Donda album. Although he claims that Universal put it out without his permission, I'm not here to really decide that or judge that. Right? Cool. So I've been in love with Donda since I first heard it, and it's been cool watching an album kind of grow and evolve right before your very eyes. Because the first listening party, I think he only like played like 10, 11 tracks, maybe 12. It was a short album, and I enjoyed it, but it didn't blow me away. And so he had Jail, which I really enjoyed. Hurricane, I think the Ant Clements version, right? And so the music sounded good, but it was not what it is today. And so I enjoyed it. I was like, cool. I'm a copy. I'm a huge Ye fan. I've listened to every Ye project, whether I love it or not. It's on my iPhone because at least 3 songs or 4 songs on the album I love, even if I think the entire body of work might be bad. So that was cool. The second Atlanta listening party, that's where things really like stepped up. The production stepped up. Like he had a drum to a lot of the tracks because one problem that I had was a lot of the songs didn't sound. All right, sorry. So yeah, a lot of the songs didn't really sound like they had any kick with them because he didn't have drums. He didn't have any 808s. And so the second listening party, the track sound is totally different because he had drums. They were mixed better. And he also had like 10 new songs. And so it went from like 10, 11 tracks to 22 tracks. And then, of course, the last event that he had in Chicago, which was right before the release. And by then, you kind of felt, what, this is done. It's kind of just whenever he wants to put it out. And we have Donda. I enjoyed it, but it is a mixed reviewed project, right? And so you have some people saying, what, this is a really good album. It's a great album. And then you have other people saying this is a trash album. This album stinks. It's a mixed review. It's a mixed review album, right? As is Certified Lover Boy, but we're talking about Donda right now, so let's stay focused. So I love Donda, right? And I've been kind of watching the commentary about Donda. I've been reading some reviews. I've been watching reaction videos. I love watching reaction videos. I've been reading people. I've been reading reviews, watching reviews on YouTube. And one topic that I want to touch here is Kanye West's religion and how it relates to Christians or people who are also themselves religious. And so Kanye West has undergone this religious transformation, so to speak, because to a certain extent he was always dancing or he was always flirting with religion, I think, right? Like he had a track called Jesus Walks, which was a very important track for his career. I think that was on the College Dropout album, Jesus Walk. And also, if you listen to his music, you listen to his raps, there's a lot of heaven, hell references, Jesus references, devil references. He references certain stories in the Bible, and this was all leading up until his coming out party, where he's like, you know what, I'm going to rededicate my life to Christ, and from this day forth, I'm only making music that glorifies God's name, and that's how we have the Kanye West we have today. So here's the thing: the Jesus is King album didn't have the reach that Kanye West needed to have. And you can tell based off of how he approached Donda versus how he approached Jesus is King. And so Jesus is King was viewed by many people as this is not a great album. This album is not that good. And it was like 11 tracks. It sounded like some of the songs weren't mixed that well. I forgot the name of the song exactly, but the one that goes uh light bright. This is what your height's bright. That type bright. That track, dope sample, wasn't mixed well at all. Kanye's voice was like all over the place. The track didn't sound that great over the speakers. Like the production on Donda is so much better than the production on Jesus is King. It's not even close. And so Kanye West, his new mission now is trying to bring souls to Christ. In fact, if you listen to Heaven and Hell, there's a line on there where he says, save my people through the music. And that's what he intends to do. And so Jesus King, which was his first project post his conversion, it didn't really hit, right? Even if you enjoyed some of the songs like I did, right? Everything We Need, I love it. Use This Gospel, I love that record. But everything else is kind of, it's okay. Say La, I like that record too, but it's not hitting the way Donda's hitting. And also, the record was too religious. And I think Kanye understood that, because if your goal is to save souls, if your goal is to, bring people to Christ, which is kind of your charge as a Christian. I was raised Baptist. I know this. I'm not just speaking from an outsider's perspective. I grew up Baptist. I still go to church. I'm a church organist, so I have actual information on this. And if you are charged with saving souls, guess what? You have to go where the people are. You can't expect the people to go where you are. And this is, I think, a common mistake that a lot of Christians make, where we kind of separate ourselves from people who are not living the right way, who are living worldly. And we don't really engage with them in the way that Jesus did, and the way Jesus actually commands us to do. And so when people look at Kanye, and one of the things, I was watching one reaction video based off of Kanye's Donda album, and it was done by two Christians, and they was talking about how they wouldn't play this for their Christian friends, and some of the subject matter was not Christ-like all the way. And I was thinking to myself, well, yeah, but this album's not for you. And so Jesus King was kind of a hard turn to like the religious style of making the music. And Kanye realized he was preaching to the choir. Now, maybe he felt compelled to make this album, to make Jesus is King kind of as this declaration. But if you actually want to save souls, if you actually want to get people who don't believe in God and introduce them to God and to Jesus Christ, as is your charge as a Christian, then yeah, you have to go into their world. And Donda is much more of Kanye West bringing in these secular artists like Shinsia, like Roddy Ricch, like Lil Baby, like Baby King, like the Weeknd, right? He's bringing in these very popular secular artists to come in, and he's actually getting them to speak, or at least to help bring their audience to his message, which is very important, as is his charge to save souls. And so to have a critique of Kanye West saying that the album is not Christian enough, or that he has to, or it sounds too secular, or some of the tracks have nothing to do with God, which is true. Lord, I Need You, which I love, almost has nothing to do with God at all. It's about his relationship with Kim. Off the Grid, there's a mention of God from here or there, but let's be honest here. We know Off the Grid is not really about God in that manner. I'm trying to think what else I could think of. Remote Control. I'm sure there's like some kind of God as far as maybe he's controlling your life, but not really once the Young Thug gets on it, right? The joint with Lauryn Hill. And so, yeah, but then you also have 24, which has God all over it. You have Jail, which is actually a very spiritual song. Hurricane, which is actually a very spiritual song. He had to do both. He's doing it the right way. Like, even when you think about the Bible, right? And I'm not a biblical scholar, so don't hold my feet to the fire if I get some details wrong from here or there. But you should understand my overall point on this, though. When you think about the Bible, and you kind of go through your Rolodex of biblical stories, religious stories, one of the things that never gets mentioned is the fact that the Bible is filled with people who were, in some ways, despicable people, definitely falling short of the glory of God, but being used by God or by Jesus directly to do miraculous things. And This journey is not like this one shot thing that we're watching. So it's not like, a man who is sinful, he finds God, he finds Jesus, and so he becomes this self-righteous dude until the end of his days. No. The Bible is messy. You have people who already believed in God that were disobeying. You had David, who was a believer in God, who was out here falling in lust with a woman, wanting her to himself, puts her husband on the front line in a war, hoping that he dies so that he can have the woman all to himself. You have Cain, who was out there sacrificing animals, hoping to be blessed by God, jealous of his brother Abel, kills his brother. Once again, this is after the belief in God already. Peter, who followed Jesus Christ, one of Christ's most loyal subjects, or so we thought, until Jesus tells him, Peter, you are going to deny me 3 times. Not once, not twice. You are going to deny me 3 times. And he did it. And so when you look, before I even proceed, and once again, I apologize if this video is not, well thought out. My mind scatters a little bit. Just, forgive me, charge it to the game. But go back to Peter. When Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? And the soldiers came upon him after collecting the information from Judas, and they go into the Garden of Eden to talk to Jesus. Peter slices off the ears of one of the men that were trying to take Jesus away. Peter, who has been following Christ all of this time, listening to his sermons, listening to his message, he knows violence is not the answer. He knows that Christ would not want him to slice off the ear of this man. But guess what? He gets emotional, a little bit of rage, ear comes off. And then what does Christ do? He bends down, picks the ear up, and he puts it back on the gentleman's face. But the context in all of these stories, being a Christian doesn't mean that you are absolved of the human BS, because you're not. Yes, you still are human. You are. And so when you look at Jesus and when you look at what we are charged with, we spend all of our time in a church building, when really what we should be doing is going out to the people in the world, in the community, ministering and trying to help them. And so when Kanye's out here trying to appeal to the masses, trying to appeal to all of the people, like he's competing with all of these secular artists for their attention, trying to make music that is heavenly but also not corny, which we know is not an easy thing to do. In fact, many have tried, few have actually been successful. And you're going to hold Kanye to this fire because he's not being the proper Christian, as if you are? I don't remember where I heard this from, but somebody said somewhere that, Jesus is fine. That what they had a problem with was they had a problem with Jesus's people. So Christians were the ones that messed it up for Jesus, not Jesus. And I think that statement is so true. Y'all out here judging somebody for doing the actual work that most Christians don't do. Most of you do not go to the community. And look, me either. I know I'm not out here doing my job like I should be doing, going on speaking to atheists or speaking to the community or helping them. Most of us aren't doing this, right? The difference between us and Kanye is he's not a hypocrite. And so Kanye, in a lot of ways, he's kind of the most honest Christian out there. He's honest about his struggle with alcohol. He's honest about his battle with his egotistical ways. He's honest about, the women. He's honest about these things in ways in which Christians are not. I mean, you can pull up the stats. A lot of Christians watch pornography. I'm one of them. A lot of Christians believe in having sex outside of marriage. I'm one of them. A lot of Christians, or even if they don't believe it, they do it, which is still as bad. You might not believe in having sex before marriage, but guess what? You do it. As do I. A lot of Christians, whether we knowingly or unknowingly, we engage in a witchcraft. We lie against our neighbors. We do a bunch of things. And we hide it. And so because our dirt is in the closet, somewhere where nobody can see it, we feel comfortable pointing out a dude who's actually doing what Christians are charged to do, but because he's not doing it perfectly or in the scope and how we think he should be doing it, we have something to say. And I find that to be hypocritical and problematic. I do. And so, do I believe Kanye is a real Christian? Yeah, I think he's the realest Christian out here. The realest Christian out here. Because he's putting his flaws on display for all of us to dissect and for all of us to actually discuss and be critical of. Being a Christian does not mean that you become this holier than thou person and you don't make mistakes or you don't struggle. In fact, every day is a struggle. Trying to live right, trying to do things in accordance with God's word, trying to be a more moral person, trying to be a more empathetic person, trying to be a less judgmental person. It's difficult. We all struggle with it. I struggle with it. But I think the difference between me and those of you critical of Kanye West is I understand, this dude is the actual real deal here. He's the actual Christian that we should be out here trying to emulate. But instead we hating because he's not doing it the way that we think he should be doing it. Nah. No. So there's that. I guess the only other point that I want to make in this video here is whether or not Christians can enjoy secular music. Is it possible for you to be a Christian and to enjoy secular music? Now, once again, I am not a reverend. I'm not a deacon. I am not somebody from seminary. I'm just a dude who believes in God, who was raised Baptist, and who loves R&B. I love R&B. My favorite artists, my two favorite R&B artists are R. Kelly and Barry White. And save your judgment and you're trying to cancel me because I told the truth. Yes, I'm a R. Kelly fan. I grew up listening to R. Kelly. I get he's in trouble. I get he's a piece of, you know what, in the eyes of many people, including myself, because I believe he's guilty of what he's being accused of. But I grew up on his music. Barry White grew up on his music. Those are my two favorite R&B artists. Okay, my two favorite. I have never felt shameful for listening to R&B, even though I am someone who is a Christian. I love gospel music. I love Kirk Franklin. I love Fred Hammond. I love Smokey Norfolk. I love Tasha Cobbs. I love these people. But I'm not just a spiritual being. I love hearing about love. I love hearing about romantic love. I enjoy hearing about lustful love, sexual love. Are we not supposed to listen to these type of songs and music? I don't know. But I do. I do. Most of us do. And so most of us should stop pretending like we don't. And if most of us are listening to this music, then where do we stand on critiquing people who make this music? Now, once again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't speak your mind. Once again, we are all allowed to be critical of people, critical of art. Artists created. If it's put out there for public consumption, that means it is also put out there for public critique. And so you can critique anything you want to critique. I'm not judging that. I'm not saying that you can't. That is not where I'm coming from. However, I'm saying, though, you also have to remember, as you are this critical person criticizing this genre of music, criticizing this form of art because you believe it is sinful or not in line with God's word, you have to remember from time to time to take that mirror and look at yourself. Like, yeah, but you listen to this stuff. Right? It's like the dudes that are super critical of porn stars, but then they're also watching porn all the time. It's like, yes, according to, the word, sex should be had between a husband and a wife. And so if you believe that, then what do you believe? You believe that any sex had outside of that union is a sin, including pornography. But you are indulging in this, in this content as well. So what does that make you? I think it's a fair point to ask. And so, yeah, to answer the question of whether or not we should be listening to secular music, I'm the wrong guy to ask. I'm just here to kind of remind us as Christians that most of us do the things that we are critical of celebrities who proclaim themselves to be Christians of doing. And so Kanye is the biggest artist right now who is a Christian. It's not even close. Not even close. He is more effective than any of your Christian rappers who are really good, any of your Christian artists who are really good. He has a bigger audience. He's better at this stuff, at making music than any of them. And I believe he believes in this calling that he has. Made this Donda album. He doesn't have an explicit version, although even if he did, I wouldn't fault him for that. And he's trying to do this thing. But remember, he just recommitted himself like 2-3 years ago. 2-3 years ago. Finding his path, finding the right way is going to take time. And part of the reason why so many people who actually do believe in God, who do identify as Christians, keep their faith tucked away is because they don't want to be critiqued by the masses. And so they hide their beliefs because they feel like, you know what? I don't want my sins to be on display because I don't want it to be used against me. But here's where I'm going to end this video because I don't want this video to be too long. Remember this, though. Being a Christian does not mean you are without sin. And I think we need to remember that. The point of becoming a believer is because you know just how difficult and how much of a journey it takes to actually get to this transformation in being someone who is more reflective of the teachings of Jesus of Jesus Christ. Right? And this is really my last point. Growing up in the church, we would take communion once a month on the first Sunday of every month. And we had to read something called the church covenant. And the church covenant, I don't remember it verbatim, but because I would hear it recited once a month for like 18 years of my life, certain parts of the church covenant is kind of etched into my soul. And one part is to be slow to take offense, but always ready for reconciliation in the church covenant, right? To abstain from the sale and the use of intoxicating drinks as a beverage. I'm trying to think if I remember any more stanzas or lines in the church covenant. But I'm bringing that up because the to be slow to take offense, but always ready for reconciliation. What I took from that is we have to stop being triggered as people who believe in God, who subscribe to the Christian ideology. We can't be triggered all the time. We can't be so judgmental. We can't hold these grudges against people because that makes us no different than everybody else. Jesus wasn't this way. God is not that way. We should always be ready for reconciliation, always be ready to forgive. And so if someone is a Christian now and they have a past of dirt, guess what? Your job, pray for them, applaud when they're doing right, and give them a gentle nudge in the right direction when you believe they are doing something wrong that is not in accordance with God's word. That is what needs to be happening. And so I believe Kanye West is the realest Christian out there. And that's where I'm gonna land this plane today. This is my first kind of YouTube live stream in a while, and so I'm going to be very critical. Of course, I'm not going to like that I studied over some words or had to think about certain things because it's in real time. But yeah, I like it. I like it. So let me know down below in the comments for those of you that are watching, this as a video. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on Donda? What are your thoughts on Kanye's religion? Do you think Donda kind of cemented that he's serious about this journey he's going on? Because I think so. Having 2 albums back to back that are kind of very, very religious, or at least religiously influenced, I think it's a pretty big deal. So thank you for listening to me. I'll see you guys next time.